Boundaries. Enmeshed or rigid? What's the difference and what impact does it make for you? Well, enmeshed boundaries are basically existing where there's families who don't know where one person stops and the next person begins. Everything has to be shared. Ideas, feelings, thoughts. If it differs in any way, it's not okay. In these kinds of relationships, it's really hard to be intimate with anyone because you're only ever dealing with fragments of each other, because no one feels safe enough to express who they really are, how they're really thinking, how they're really feeling. Because if it doesn't match, it's not right. On the opposite end of the extreme, so that was enmeshed, on the opposite end, we've got, if they're really rigid boundaries, then we've got walls of protection up. And in these sorts of families, everything looks great from the outside. But on the inside, no one's really communicating with each other. There's a lack of spontaneity. And everyone has lost touch with their unique self. So, whichever one it is for you, it really doesn't matter too much, because it's still the same thing. It's not okay to express who we truly are, how we truly feel, what we truly think. There's always a fear of offending someone in some way, which will have consequences which you don't like. So, how do our boundaries get valued? I want to share this with you first of all. And when our boundaries get violated, it affects our sense of worth. It affects our sense of, I'm lovable, I'm worthy, and I'm enough, just as I am, without needing to be anything or do anything. This is where it all happens. And because we're taught that if we think differently, if we express ourselves differently, it's not okay, then equally, if we make a mistake and we get laughed at, or we have a response that makes us feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, well, are you going to want to learn? Because learning involves making lots of mistakes. Suddenly learning is horrible. Learning isn't fun. Learning becomes this huge struggle. So it has a major impact on our lives. Because when we learn, we grow, we change, we become more than who we were in some way, whether it's a new skill, whether it's becoming more self-aware, more confident in something, whatever it is. And naturally, you'll fall over like a child learning to walk. You'll fall over, but the reluctance is that if I get up, I'm going to get smashed again. I'm going to fall down again. I don't want that. It's about bringing ourselves back to being that child who's falling over and being okay to pick themselves up and try again. So, I want to share with you now a list. This is from The Ultimate You Quest by Sharon Pearson. And she talks a lot about boundaries in this book. I just want to share with you how boundaries can be violated within a family situation. And some of these might resonate with you, some might not, and that's totally cool. Just notice what does connect and sit with you. And you might have other examples in your own life as well. So this list is by no means exhaustive, but I want to share this with you because you might be thinking, well, did I experience that? So I'm going to give you some specific examples. So here we go. Were you wounded through abandonment or the threat of it, however it was experienced? Were you shamed or made to feel less than? Were you neglected or ever feel isolated? Were you ever felt judged, belittled or singled out? Were you denied your feelings or told they were wrong? Were you denied your thoughts and told they were wrong? Were you mocked for not knowing something you couldn't possibly know? Were you denied anger over an injustice? Were you molested or incested? Were you abused? Did you witness any kind of abuse? Were you forced to do something beyond your developmental stage? Were you ever forced to do something beneath your developmental stage? Were you denied your voice? Did you ever have to nurse a parent? Were you beaten? Were you told how to think and feel about religion? Were you told how to think and feel about sex? Were you from a patriarchal family structure? Did you have to reassure your parents rather than be reassured? Were you allowed to laugh or cry or be angry? Were there rules without context? There was inconsistent rule enforcement. Was your tribe rigid about obedience? Were there different rules for girls versus boys based on gender without any context? Were you told to mock a group of people because they were different? Did you ever have mistakes mocked, demonized, or in any way something other than learning? Were your own opinions seen as defiance and disrespectful? Were you told that you wear your heart on your sleeve and that you're too sensitive? Were you told to man up and men don't cry? Could you behave as if you were entitled to unearned privileges? If you're punished without understanding, why? Were you told to grow up when you were still a child? You could never win over your parents' trust. One mistake meant forever being judged and reminded of it. Or were you told, I'll give you something to cry about after being hurt physically or emotionally? Were you told to stop that crying when you were sad or mad? Did your mother ever ask you to tell her that you thought about her and that you loved her? Did your parents or one of your parents were one of your parents or both of them an alcoholic? Was one or both of your parents some other form of addict? Was one of your parents a narcissistic? Was one parent unreasonable and the other submissive? Were one or both of your parents over-disciplining? Were one or both of your parents have no structural boundaries? Were you compared to other children or siblings? Did your parents withdraw affection or attention as a punishment? Were you allowed reasonable privacy or not? Were there no rules, limits, or were there no rules, no limits, or no consequences? And so the result of these kinds of boundary violations is that we stop knowing who we are. It's no longer safe. We lose that sense of self-worth, that sense of self-esteem, that confidence we have in just being who we are. And so we play out roles to fit what we imagine people expect of us, so that we don't offend people, that we don't rock the boat. And we go through life watching life pass us by, hoping one day it's going to get better. Well, hopefully one day I will have the inspiration of what I need to do to change. Hopefully one day it'll work itself out. And this is something that Sharon refers to as magical thinking, living in hope. And the remedy for that is actually action. What do I need to do to change this? And actually acting on that. So it's really important to set boundaries, to define what's okay and what's not okay. Who am I surrounding myself with? Are they going to support me if I say no thank you? Are they going to feel offended or not? If they don't feel offended, great. Keep more of those people around you. If they're the sort of people who get offended, That's okay too, but just notice that they probably don't have any boundaries. And be aware of that. And find more people who have boundaries, who are okay with thinking differently and outside the box, who know their minds. At first it can feel scary because we're not used to it. And that's okay too. Just be aware of how you're feeling around them, and it can feel intimidating. Absolutely. But know that they're doing it and it's okay. And it's also okay for you to do that too, and to choose that for yourself. And I actively encourage you to do so. And if you're looking for a safe place, a safe community where you can express yourself just as you are without judgment, I invite you to come to my Facebook group, and I'll post the link for it down in the description. And come and find people who are on this personal development journey, who want to be more than what they're currently portraying themselves out there in the world. They want to be more connected to themselves. They want to be more self-assured, stronger, able to make decisions, think for themselves, and be okay with that, and be okay with someone saying no, and being okay with saying no and saying yes to the things that they want. So thank you so much for watching. And if you'd like, please subscribe for the videos, for the channel. And if you hit the bell button, you'll never miss another video. And if you learned something from today, please share it in the comments. It really helps people who come along and find these videos to get value. If you feel like you need to add something, please do. I'm always looking for ways of broadening my knowledge, and I know that whatever I'm looking at is not exhaustive as well. There's lots of knowledge out there, so please do share your comments and your learnings. It's always good to know more. And yeah, thanks again for watching. Have a beautiful day. Namaste.